3, 2, 1. Welcome inside the WVLT newsroom. I'm Will Puckett. Well, we're diving into an investigation WVLT News has done recently on a firearms change within the Knoxville Police Department through an open records request that we did in the past year. We found out that the Knoxville Police Department has switched to a handgun that has become controversial around the country over the past several years. So right now we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into a further investigation that we've done, a few other stories done by stations across the country of the problems that people are claiming the Sig Sauer P320 presents, and an investigation by our station in Nashville of people right here in our own state of Tennessee who have been impacted by what people say the P320 leaves open, or the ability to do through no fault of their own. So again, we're taking a look at the Sig Sauer P320. This photo you see right here is actually from Sig Sauer's own website, and it shows you what the P320 looks like. It is simply a handgun that folks use and carry themselves, and now a number of police departments truly across the country are switching to. The police department said that it was actually smaller than the handguns they had carried earlier, and after a round of training with officers and their firearms instructors, they felt that it was safe at the time to give this to officers within the Knoxville Police Department. But again, as we're going to outline for you here in this WVLT News investigation, that this very handgun, again, the Sig Sauer P320, is claimed to, but multiple people have claimed that this gun will fire by itself, because in one version of the firearm, and often the one that people opt to use in the police department in Knoxville actually has switched to, it does not have a safety mechanism built into it. There are a couple of things that Sig Sauer says are built into the gun to keep it from going off, but as we're going to show you in this investigation, multiple other departments and just general people who have purchased this gun have found out that sometimes that's not always the case. So we'll start with this first video. This is from WFSB in Connecticut. This is video of officers in the Montville City Public Safety Headquarters when this gun right there goes off. Again, so take a look at your screen. You can see this officer bends over with his gun holstered, and it fires right there. That officer never at any point touched the gun's trigger. No one tried to get the gun. It was simply when he bent over, it was holstered on his hip, it fires right there. This is not the only office that says this has happened. This is not the only person that has said this happened, specifically with the Sig Sauer P320. We'll go ahead and give you a different view. That one from body cam, this from security footage. As he bends over, it fires right there, nearly striking one of their officers just standing behind him and the officer next to him. In this story from WFSB in Hartford, Connecticut, it said that there was nothing, no manipulation of the firearm, not anything would have caused this to discharge. Again, this coming from a sound in that package that this video is taken from. Now again, the Knoxville Police Department has switched to these guns in the past year. We did an open records request and got this information directly from the Knoxville Police Department. So we reached out to them in this series of investigations that we have done on this firearm to find out more information, specifically why the department decided to switch to the Sig Sauer P320. So we got this statement from the Knoxville Police Department that reads, "We switched our department-issued handgun to the Sig Sauer P320 in the early part of 2025, as our previous system had aged and was in need of replacement. Ahead of that transition, our firearms training staff conducted comprehensive hands-on testing of multiple firearms to evaluate performance, safety, and functionality." But again, this is one of the most controversial handguns on the market right now because it does not have a safety mechanism in one of the additions of the gun built in to keep something like this from happening. Now, there is a law firm that has filed hundreds of lawsuits that are working their way through the system right now. We spoke with attorney Robert Zimmerman, who is an attorney at Saltz, Mongalusi, and Bendesky. It's a firm that represents more than 125 people against Sig Sauer, this gun manufacturer. He sat down with us, and we actually talked to him about how this happens, what his investigation and lawsuits look like. We're going to share a series of this interview with you. Here's one of the comments that he made where he said that the gun owner, Sig Sauer, manufacturer rather, had made the gun pre-cocked, meaning its striker was pulled back and made for an exceptionally short trigger pull. Here's what Zimmerman said to us in that interview.
Sig Sauer chose to make their gun pre-cocked, meaning the striker was already pulled back and made for an exceptionally short trigger pull. They coupled that decision with including no safety on the original P320s, no thumb safety, no striker safety, no external safety that would protect a very short trigger from any movement. So what we see are guns that have trigger distance to pull and fire of, about half or 2/3 of what you've seen with other gun manufacturers. And these other gun manufacturers, Glock, Smith & Wesson, Springfield, and others, are putting one or sometimes two external safeties on these guns.
So we took that to the Knoxville Police Department, and they responded with, "We are aware of the alleged safety concerns throughout our evaluation and before officially making the transition to the P320. However, our extensive vetting process and conversations with Sig Sauer gave us confidence in the performance, reliability, and safety of the firearm." So the Knoxville Police Department says that they actually talked with Sig Sauer about the P320 and those safety concerns. Again, Zimmerman represents 125, at least 125 people who are suing Sig Sauer because of the P320, this edition of the P320, and it not having a safety mechanism on it. Sig Sauer says that the gun is supposed to be strong enough to the trigger pull where it can't easily be pulled like it apparently has been in that footage that you saw from WFSB. And so again, we talked further with Zimmerman about what he's seeing in their investigations in these lawsuits. Here's what he told us about what they're seeing in the field when it comes to the P320.
What we're seeing in the field are a staggering number of unintended discharges where individuals' hands are not even touching the gun, whether it be their body movement, whether it be movement within the holster, whether it be someone trying to retrieve their gun but going nowhere near the trigger.
So now that's Zimmerman going through what they're seeing as they find out more and more departments, more and more people on the streets are purchasing this handgun just to use for personal protection, gun enthusiasts, and folks just wanting to go to the range. This is an issue that they say has arisen from this gun. Now, we've told you that the Knoxville Police Department has purchased the P320. They have told us that they have done a multitude of vetting on this firearm, but also there are people, like I've mentioned multiple times in this investigation, who have purchased this gun either for, again, personal protection or are gun enthusiasts or just want to take it to the range, who say that this is dangerous for them. Our station in Nashville, WSMV News 4, did their own investigation on the issues with the P320 and specifically how it puts everyday people's lives at risk if it indeed does fire, like the WSFB video shows and multiple other videos through the investigation have shown. Here is WSMV's investigation on the Sig Sauer P320.
Christopher Bosher's love affair with guns started at a young age.
My first gun was when I was 5 years old. I have been an avid, sports shooter.
So buying a Sig Sauer P320 was a no-brainer. After all, the company cites it as one of America's best-selling pistols. 2 years ago, with a pistol like this one in the pocket of his concealed carry vest, he stepped out of his car at a Franklin gas station.
As I'm going to stand up, I've got my arm on the door to kind of pull myself out. And as I'm about halfway up, I almost didn't even hear it, but I did. The gun went off. So at this point, I realized what's happened. I've been shot.
But there was no shooter. The gun that shot him was his own.
911.
We got somebody on the porch that's been shot in the leg. He just passed out. Oh my God, he's bleeding so bad. His gun went off and it was an accident.
Traveled all the way down my leg. And it's actually still in my tibia.
The bullet is still in your leg?
Yes, it's still in my leg. I've been over it 1,000 times in my head. I don't know how it happened, but I do know that I didn't pull the trigger.
The end result?
This is where they performed, it's called a fasciotomy.
Extensive surgery to his leg.
I usually get about, 20 minutes a piece in the morning, and I just hurt for the rest of the day.
But how? How could a gun fire without the trigger being pulled? It's a question WSMV4 Investigates found law enforcement is asking as well. Watch. Just like Boscher's, the Sig Sauer P320 of this deputy in Roscommon, Michigan, went off as he stepped out of his squad car. And there's more. In Montville, Connecticut, an officer bends down to a suspect's leg when his P320 in his holster suddenly fires. The gunshot is briefly captured in the security video. In Somerset County, Maine, deputies scramble when they hear a gunshot, only to realize one of their own is injured when his Sig Sauer suddenly fired. And we found more police injuries from when Sig Sauer P320s discharge, including in LaGrange, Texas.
Hang in there, Currington.
This isn't a case about guns. This is a case about this gun.
Robert Zimmerman has already sued Sig Sauer twice, winning verdicts in Atlanta and Philadelphia. Boscher is part of a wave of new clients named in a mass action lawsuit.
Now we represent over 100 individuals who have been injured by the Sig Sauer P320.
Zimmerman says the reason the guns are firing without the trigger being pulled is because the P320s don't have a safety mechanism.
They're not using the safeties that are readily available and used by other gun makers.
WSMV4 Investigates repeatedly emailed Sig Sauer's media contact, asking for an interview, but no response. On the company's website, they have an entire page dedicated to defending what they call biased and agenda-driven parties, claiming the P320 cannot discharge without a trigger pull, even showing animation of how the trigger must be pulled in order to fire. The site states accidental discharges happen because of negligent handling of the guns and foreign objects getting into holstered firearms.
Basically, they just cut my leg open to relieve the pressure from the internal bleeding.
To this day, Boscher's doesn't know why his gun discharged without him pulling the trigger. He just knows how he's suffering because of it.
I do know that it is a big problem for this to happen to not just me, but others as well.
Jeremy Finley, WSMV4 Investigates.
Again, that was Jeremy Finley with our station in Nashville on their investigation into the Sig Sauer P320. Again, this video you're seeing was just in Jeremy's package. We showed it to you earlier in this investigation that we're bringing to you right here. But this is an issue that folks claim the Sig Sauer P320 that does not, in one of its renditions, one of its editions, does not have, models rather, probably the correct term for that, one of its models does not have a safety mechanism built into it. The reason we're bringing you this story is because we found out through an open records request that in 2025, early 2025, the Knoxville Police Department had switched over to using the Sig Sauer P320. Now, it's not just law firms and individuals who are bringing up concerns with the Sig Sauer P320. The Fraternal Order of Police has actually raised concerns with that. Through our reporting, we found out that in a letter to Sig Sauer's president, the Fraternal Order of Police said that reliability problems with the handgun, quote, raise serious questions about the safety and reliability of the P320, which many of our members rely on to perform their daily duties. In the Tennessee chapter, the order worries them too, but they added only time will tell or not whether the P320 presents a major issue to law enforcement. Again, as we've heard from Zimmerman, they're representing more than 120 people who are saying that the Sig Sauer P320 presented them with dangerous issues and possibly life-threatening issues when somehow that trigger had been pulled or at least the gun had been fired. Now, again, we've put Zimmerman to the test on what they know in these cases, and Zimmerman claims that every time they go to court or go to trial, juries are siding with the plaintiffs that Sig Sauer's gun is not safe.
And that the gun was defective. So we have now tried 3 cases. All of the juries have found that this gun is defective. What it's telling me is that jurors are making common sense decisions based on the testimony they hear, the evidence that is presented to them from both sides.
So we again have gone back to the Knoxville Police Department and continue to press them for answers on why they opted for a handgun for all of the officers in the department that is now under serious lawsuits claiming that the gun fires without the trigger ever being pulled. As you've seen from a number of these videos, the gun never leaves the holster that it's being stored in. This gun seemingly fires without ever being pressed or really anything being pressed up against it. So in another response to us, KPD says the transition took place over an approximately 4-month period from February to May of 2025. All current officers, including command staff members, were required to complete in-service training before being outfitted with the new firearm, the Sig Sauer P320. That training has also been integrated into the Basic Recruit Academy. And so again, this is video of one of these P320s at the Montvale Police Office, the police department in Connecticut, going off without ever being pressed. And you can see just how close it gets to one officer's hand. You can see this body camera footage of one of the officers is what this is caught on. And so that just shows how close this gets, or the gun possibly can get, to doing serious injury and damage. And in the WSMV, our station in Nashville story, you could very closely see how close it got to people when it was accidentally fired. So Sig Sauer's website, as we heard, has an explanation of the P320 and goes in depth on what they say are the protections and how the gun is built to make sure that everyone is safe when they use it, without, in one of the models, no safety mechanism being built into it. But hundreds of people are now suing, or at least more than 100 people are suing the gun manufacturer from one law firm, saying that their gun presented danger to them when it fired without the trigger ever being pressed. So again, we talked to Zimmerman again on what this means, and he said he's being called all the time by people who say, my Sig Sauer P320 has been a danger to me.
My phone keeps ringing of clients who are becoming injured. I don't want to represent anyone else in this litigation. I want this gun to be recalled so that we don't have another 125 people who are calling us over the next several years.
Knoxville Police Department, again, who started using the P320 at the beginning of 2025, says at present our training staff, current officers, and recruits have collectively fired more than 350,000 rounds through approximately 400 P320s without experiencing any issues at all. And then the Knoxville Police Department, in another response, goes on to say from there that we take great pride in providing our officers with the equipment and training they need to keep themselves and our community safe. Further, we are confident in our evaluation and decision-making process that preceded this transition. Again, the Knoxville Police Department saying they switched to this because of the ones they were using were beginning to be outdated, and they opted for the P320, which is a bit smaller than what they were carrying before, but felt that it would be useful for officers to use within the Knoxville Police Department. But again, this is a look at the P320. There is a model edition of this, which the Knoxville Police Department uses, that does not have a safety mechanism built into it. But again, they say that the trigger and the mechanisms they built into this model should protect from the need for having a safety in this handgun. But again, as you can see here at times, and more than 100 people are claiming in lawsuits by a law firm that this gun can fire without the trigger ever being pressed. And this video from the Montvale Police Department shows that an officer goes to apprehend a suspect and he bends over and it fires, and you can see the round coming out right there. That little gold movement that you can see, yellow, whatever color you want to call it, bends over, boom, just misses an officer, just misses two officers, and creates quite the confusion and concern within that department. Now look, we have done we've reached out to the Knoxville Police Department. We have outlined what they say. They feel that they have done plenty of research on this firearm. They have talked with Sig Sauer about the P320 to make sure that they have dotted all of their I's and crossed all of their T's on this. Command staff use them. Officers in the field use them. They say they fired hundreds of thousands of rounds of this without experiencing any issue at all with the Sig Sauer P320. But again, we continue to look into this. We'll continue to press the Knoxville Police Department to make sure that this gun is the right one to be using taxpayer money on to purchase, and from there making sure that officers are safe as they use this firearm. We're going to have continued information inside the WVLT homepage at WVLT.tv for you on the Sig Sauer P320. We'll also continue to press all departments across East Tennessee to make sure that if they use this, they're going through the correct process and a right amount of research to make sure that the P320s they're putting into the streets, into action in East Tennessee is the correct gun to be using for our law enforcement agents. Again, you're going to be able to read so much more about this story right here on the WVLT homepage, and you can watch this anytime streaming on WVLT Plus. And of course, we'll continue to keep an eye on this story as it develops, of the Knoxville Police Department switching last year to the Sig Sauer P320, which hundreds of people are now claiming without a safety mechanism built into one of the models puts lives at danger, as it can fire without any action done on the trigger.